YouTube, how you doing? Java Kid Programming here, bringing you another video tutorial in the series of Java video tutorials. So today we're going to be covering for loops, and for loops is the next step up, if you can say, in the logical operations. First you have if statements, then you have while loops, and the next step up from while loops is for loops. Now for loops is not that much different from a while loop, but it is more useful as you can have a lot more uses for it, and we'll see that just in a second. So if I move on to the next slide, we're just going to recap what happened in the previous video. So now in the previous video I went over while loops. Now while loops, as you can see here, is for one single condition, and it will keep repeating whatever line of code you have inserted until this condition is met. So in this case, as shown in the previous tutorial, if you haven't watched it, go and watch it, you'll know what I'm talking about over here. You can see that I'm defining a new variable x and giving it the value less than 10, equal to 0, and the condition being less than or equal to 10. Now while this condition is true, it will outprint the value of x and increment it by 1. So this is how a while loop looks. If you guys again haven't watched it, go to my previous tutorial. However, today we're going to be covering for loops, and for loops take this type of form. Now you might be wondering why there's 3 separations and 3 different parts to what the condition will be, but I'll go through that in a second. Let me just tell you how to structure a for loop. Now for loop, you just use the word for as you would while or if, and then you open your brackets for where your condition will go. Now this is the part where you have to remember it. For loops only work for 3 conditions. So in each for loop you have to have 3 conditions. You have to have an initial condition, you have to have an ending condition, and then you have to increment whatever variable you're using in that condition. So for loops are used for things such as a counter. As you can see here, we're counting up every time. So from 0 to 10, we're going to keep counting up until we reach x less than 10. So I've initiated a new integer called x. I'm giving it a value 0, which is where my initial condition goes in the for loop. I'm saying the ending condition is that x is less than 10, and I'm incrementing the variable x by 1 every time. X++ is just another nice way of saying x equals x plus 1. So instead of writing that, we can just write x++. So if we go ahead and we go and implement this now, as you can see, I've already pre-formatted the code. So just to show you guys, for, again, the initial statement, the ending statement, and then incrementing the counter by 1. Now, I'm just going to do it very simply so you guys can understand what I'm talking about. I'm just going to do system.out.println because I want it to display what value of x is being shown every time it goes through the counter or the loop. So if we go ahead and run this, we can see that it's going to go from x equals 0 to x equals less than 10, and then it's going to increment the value of x every time until x is less than 10, or until x is equal to 10, sorry, or greater than 10. If we go ahead and run this, we should see all the numbers from 0 to 9. And as you can see here at the bottom in 1 second, all the values from 0 to 9. Now you guys may be wondering why 10 is not included in that. Well, I haven't said x is equal to 10. That's why 10 is not there. So running through our output, we can see that we've initiated the x value being 0. Is x less than the final initiation, which is 10? Yes, it is less than 10, and therefore we're going to outprint the value of x and increment x by 1. So x has now taken the value of 1. Is 1 less than 10, which is our ending condition? Yes, it is. So we're going to print the value again and increment the variable x by 1. So this is how it kind of works. You can use this for things such as histograms and stuff like that. Very useful, more useful than using if statements or while loops. And this is just a very basic example of how you would use a for statement. But if I show you guys a more complicated example of how you would use a for loop, taking my histogram coursework, which I've just done for software development principles module, you can see that I've implemented for loops to calculate the number of stars which are in each category. Now if you guys don't know what a histogram is, it's basically a kind of a graph of all different categories, and in each category we have to print out how many students are in that category. Now to calculate how many students there are, you need a counter. So for a certain variable to a certain number, you're going to want to keep printing out stars until that number is met or that variable is met. So as you can see here, I have stars as the new initiation variable or the initial condition. I'm giving it the value of 1 because if you give it the value of 0 and you increment it by 1, it won't print a star for that value. So you always have to start with 1. So I've given it the value of 1, and then my ending condition is that it be less than or equal to the number of students within that category. And then I'm going to increment the value of stars by 1. So every time stars is equal to 1, is it less than that category? If so, print a star and then add 1 onto the variable star. Star is less than that category, print a star, add a variable star, until all the stars in that category have been met. If I just run this code, I can show you guys a bit what I'm talking about. So if I just enter 25 and 35 and then 101, say, as you can see here, stars in that category is 1. Is stars less than or equal to that category, which I just entered 1? Yes, it is. So we're going to print a star. Then stars is going to be 2. Is stars less than equal to that category, which was 1? No, it's greater than that category, so we're not going to print a star, and we're going to move on to the next for loop. And basically, this is just how you implement for loops. It makes your code more succinct, and it is used for counter time variables. You can also use this in things such as timer applications and all sorts of stuff like that, which is much useful and much more succinct than using a while or if statement. So I hope you guys have enjoyed the video tutorial today. I'm sorry for it being so short, but there's not really that much you can say. In the next video, I'll be covering nested for loops, which is basically for loops within for loops, and how you could structure the for loops to that, because once you have so many for loops within each other, it can get quite complicated. So once again, hope you guys have enjoyed the video tutorial. If you haven't watched my other videos, please do so. Comment, like, rate, subscribe. Any constructive criticism is helpful, and I will see you guys in my next tutorial.